Good morning. Big thanks for joining us still as we look at democracy and emergency role in Nigeria, how to unpack the stories and, of course, proffering solutions to the problem bedeviling the country. Well, various personalities have spoken about this aspect as regards the emergency role declaration by the #1 citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on Rivers State. And again, the sporadic effect it may be having again on Benue State. And some have described it as different angles. Some call it as an attempt for a state capture for the bigger one coming up 2027. Others call it, well, the product and negative dividends of godfatherism that we've been trying to resolve, for over a decade now. And looking at all of this, starting with me in the studio, I have the former SSA to the governor of the state on arts and culture, a political analyst, and he is Omoigi Amieye. Amioma. That's a full name. Yeah. And I love it as you call it.
Good morning, Philip. Good morning, Nigerians.
And also joining us via Zoom is a political economist, a lecturer at Brussels University, Ibrahim Mama. Good morning, Ibrahim. Okay, as the show progresses, we hope to be joined by Ibrahim Mama via Zoom as we look at these issues. But let's quickly look at what has been happening. The former President Ebele Goodluck Jonathan, commented on this and said that the role at which the president played seem not to support the Constitution, looking at sections 1, 5, and 305 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. And of course, as reports have it, the PDP governors are heading to the Supreme Court to look at this. What do you see about this development of democracy and the emergency rule saga?
Thank you very much, Philip. You see, this emergency rule saga mirrors reminiscent of what happened in 1966, the wide west of the defunct western region, wherein that eventually led to the coup and counter-coup that eventually now led to the civil war between 1967 and 1970. The president was too in a hurry to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State. There was nothing, showing that there was insecurity in Rivers State before it was declared. Just barely 12 hours on bomb blasts on oil facility, and that announcement was made. I think the PDP governors are taking the right step in the right direction to take this to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, good one you mentioned of the installation that were bombed, because this has been the stories, following all of these issues when it comes to infrastructural assets, that need to be protected. And comments were made by a politician, just like they say in a dictum that an owl cried at night and in the morning a child died. There's a relationship. Now, the suspended governor made it clear that at a particular time he's going to be giving instructions to the youth. He said it, and it was along. We had the bombing of that installation, So don't you see the need that brought in the intervention by the president?
At least a curfew would have been declared, not just an outright state of emergency. Of course, we've seen last year, the tail of last year, we have series of killings, for example, in Zamfara, in Maru local government area in Zamfara. State of emergency wasn't declared there. In Katsina, we had 21 soldiers killed. A state of emergency was not declared there. At the dawn of 2024, we had a new jihadist group known as Lakurawa that was formed, and a state of emergency wasn't declared there. Of course, come back to Edo, we look at Onwa, Ovia, and some parts of Edo State where there have been unrest, where herdsmen have been having sway. State of emergency was not declared. It is clear, it is crystal clear that all these are tailored towards the 2027 election. It is purely political.
Well, until proven to be true, that's what has been in the news lately, and a lot of persons have been saying stuff regarding that. But anyway, we saw yesterday that the suspended River State governor came out to debunk and take himself out of the picture and say that he is not involved in the violence sort of that's been happening in River State with the bombing of the pipelines and all of this stuff. But really, away from that, I would love us to talk a little bit about the state of democracy in Nigeria, because a lot of persons feel that we are practicing a unique type of democracy in Nigeria. I really do not know how true that is. We saw the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, come out to say that somebody who is sleeping and does not know that he is asleep, it's quite difficult to wake up that person. And a lot of the so-called the leaders that we have, they know the right thing to do, but they are not doing it. So what really does this mean for our democracy in Nigeria? Where are we heading to?
Yes, this state of emergency that has been declared is setting a very, very bad precedent. Of course, when we had our nascent democracy from 1999, we had Obasanjo building the foundation. We have former late president Yar'Adua building on that foundation. We had Goodluck Ebele Jonathan coming on board. What we are having now is like a total collapse of that foundation, a total destruction of that foundation. If you see activities leading to this state of emergency, it was well orchestrated. Governor Fubara was gagged into this. You see the sequence in collaboration with the judiciary to ensure that this thing came, and barely 12 hours after a bomb blast, it was an announcement. You see, this is taking us back. Rather than building on successes we've had in the past, this idea of this state of emergency is drawing us back.
No.
Well,
Right.
interesting. It's quite intriguing. But
course.
let's get to your comment. Ibrahim Momo, I believe we've been able to establish your presence via Zoom. Good morning, Ibrahim. Can you hear me, Ibrahim? Good morning.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning,
Okay,
Philip.
good one,
Good morning,
good one.
Nigerians. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
All right, good to have your join. Now, we don't know what to do about the democracy we have in Nigeria. But again, I want your perspective in the whole issue, looking at the declaration by the president on Rivers State on emergency rule, and the situation, the development that made the president to make that declaration, most especially when it is upon the president. If the country fails, he takes the blame. And if it prospers, he takes the credit. And so it is expedient that, being that he has discretionary powers, to make sure that he quickly intervenes, because what was happening in River State was deteriorating to a point where, could lead to chaos. But the actions of the president has been criticized by leaders, experts of thoughts at various levels. What do you see about these actions by the president? Would you concur with those who criticize him and say that he was wrong for declaring so quickly, or do you support the president's actions?
Well, thank you very much. I'm an interested Nigerian. That's the first thing. And so whatever happens in Nigeria is something that should interest Nigerians. The first point to make about it is that the president acts within the powers conferred by the Constitution with regards to state of emergency. The answer is yes. The Constitution, Section 305, Section 2B, I think, grants the president the power to take extraordinary measures. It gives him extraordinary powers. Now, state of emergency, the nature of a state of emergency is that it abridges even the basic or fundamental rights of Nigerians, of humans. For example, the right of free movement, the right of expression, freedom of expression, they are abridged in a state of emergency. So if the fundamental rights of people can be abridged, citizens can be abridged in a state of emergency, I wonder how it is that that same declaration cannot abridge the privileges. It is not a right to be a governor. It's not a right. There's the right of freedom of movement. There's the right of freedom of expression, freedom of association. The right to be. If the constitution can allow you to abridge the basic rights of citizens, I think it of course confers far more rights or more powers to remove a single. That's on one side. Second point, it's not the issue about the state of emergency that was declared. For me, it's not a legal argument, because even Wole Soyinka spoke to it about, I think, 2 days ago, when he said that the Constitution grants the President of Nigeria too much powers. He acted within his powers. The Constitution, the challenge is that our Constitution grants exceeding powers to the sitting president. Just like what the governors have been doing to local governments until last year, where a governor willy-nilly would remove a sitting local government chairman duly elected because he had the powers to, and then until the Supreme Court now ruled. And so perhaps what we need is a judicial precedent or a ruling by the Supreme Court that will nip in the bud this act. But if the president has today asked if the question is a legal one, yes. But there's a moral question. Is it right to remove somebody who was duly elected and impose, if you may, an administrator? I think that's what they call him, an administrator. Is it morally right? That for me is the question. And so my position is that even though the president may have acted in his powers conferred by the Constitution on declaration of state of emergency, it is reprehensible. It is morally wrong in my own thinking that the Constitution has given the kind of power that can remove a sitting governor and impose, an administrator. But when you now look a little further, why would they have done that? The point here is that in the course of the 2023, 2024, and then 2025, we have seen what cannot be compared with what's happening anywhere in Nigeria. I know the guests in the studio pointed to, skirmishes or security issues all over Nigeria. But when you ask security issue with a political angle, which is the fight between the governor and his godfather in one instance, the governor and another arm of government in another instance, and you look at the actions of the governor, I'll give you just 3 of those actions that he has taken that were wrong, that were illegal. One, he brought down the State House of Assembly. It's like the House of Assembly bringing down the government house. In fact, from my background as a political scientist, including as a lecturer, we know that among the 3 arms of government, even though they are supposedly inter pares, they are equal, the legislature, it has preeminence. There is what we call primus inter pares. It is the first among those equals, the legislature. But the governor had the temerity to bring down the House of Assembly, rendering almost rendering them almost inability to sit, something that we cannot accept. Secondly, is that without money that was appropriated, without due process, the governor stopped the subvention, the allowances that was going to the House of Assembly. That is not something that we should close our eyes. If a governor, if the president, for example, can decide that the money that is meant for National Assembly will not go to them because he's the president, are we going to applaud the president, or are we going to paper over it, or overlook the fact that he is infringing, is acting over and above his power? The third point is that the man was elected to be governor. But what we saw was that he was playing to the gallery and he was inciting. The governor said, quote and unquote, this governor, Siminalayi Fubara, said that if the youth should be ready, when it is time, he will mobilize them. On national television, these are things that you do not expect from a sitting governor. And then for me, I think that even though, yes, he might be right to having a fight, in some of he had a fight with the governor, the former governor, his godfather, or he has a fight with, an issue with the House of Assembly. Some of the actions he has taken were just beyond security issues. They are things, and you can see that his supporters, after he made those, let them be ready, at times he mobilized them. We started seeing attacks on oil installations and gas facilities across the country. That's not something that the president could have overlooked. That's my opinion.
Mama, thank you so much for your beautiful submission. But at this point, there are those who actually say and think that right now in Nigeria, we tend to operate a babas or crazy. We have I don't know, like a rubber stamp democracy right now in the country. Remember last year when President Bola Tinubu came to present the 2025 budget, and then we saw some of the House of Representative members, the senators singing "On your mandate we shall stand." Now the big question really is, what role has the National Assembly, the senators and everybody involved in the assembly played in all of this? Because there are also allegations that some monies have been paid, some bribes were collected just to ensure that we have a smooth run of the state of emergency in Rivers State, which a lot of persons have said is unconstitutional. Although some senators have come out to debunk and say it is not true. They got a Salah money. We don't know how true that is. But what really, would you, or how would you describe the state of the National Assembly currently in Nigeria?
Well, I think the fundamental question you ask relates to the state of democracy in practice. One of the challenges, some of us have, even though we're political scientists, some of us have always criticized democracy as it's not the best form of government. If you ask, for example, what is democracy? You get to the definition like democracy is majority rule. Democracy is the government by the people, of the people, and for the people. But in practice, what does this represent? Democracy, for example, says in the US and in Nigeria that you can only be president for 2 terms or 4 years. But democracy in Germany and in the UK, Great Britain, you can be prime minister or chancellor as long as people have voted for you. Democracy will say that there is separation of powers, that you have 3 arms of government in Nigeria and in the US, such that you have the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. But democracy will tell you that in a democracy, you can fuse both the legislature and the executive in a parliamentary system of government. So the question is, what is democracy? It is that challenge of definition, that challenge of characterization. That is what we suffer in Nigeria. Because when you have that kind of system where democracy does not have bounds, where you can have a democracy that will grant the sitting president, let's put on record that Tinubu is not the first Nigerian president. These powers that Tinubu is exercising, other presidents have exercised them. You have had, this is not the first time a sitting governor has been removed. Olusegun Obasanjo removed former Plateau State Governor Joshua Dariye. He also removed former Ekiti State Governor Peter Ayo Fayose. Former President Goodluck Jonathan removed a sitting president, a sitting governor, in the presence of Murtala and Yako for Adamawa State. It is not the first time. These powers are too heavy for a sitting president. That is the challenge we are facing. So the challenge for me fundamentally is the character of democracy. How do you characterize democracy? What is democracy really? That's the first challenge. The second challenge is that even though we say majority rule, democracy is majority rule, let us even accept that sometimes that majority rule is induced majority. It's induced. People who are voting in elections, how are they voting? Why are they voting? You go and find out that about half of the people who come out to vote on election day are coming out because of the inducements, the money they will get on election day. Are voting, the choice of who they will vote for is determined not by the desire for good governance, but by the one who is paying the highest bidder. Okay, this one is giving me 5,000, the other one is giving me 10,000, I'll vote for the one that's giving me 10,000. The democracy we're talking about, the majority we're talking about, what is the character of the process of electing leaders? These are fundamental issues about our democracy. So if you are saying that the people, the office of the citizen is being compromised, if the citizen of the federation is the highest office of the land, if that man who has the power to determine who becomes head of state, who becomes governor, who becomes government chairman, senator, house of rep member, or house of assembly member, that individual is willing to sell his franchise, his rights to determine who leads him for a paltry peanut of 10,000 naira. Then you want to wonder, what are we complaining about? if the man on the street can collect 10,000 or 5,000 or 2,000 to vote, is it the $10,000 that the House of Assembly, House of Rep member or senator that will collect that is not the issue? The man that is collecting 10,000 in the beginning, okay, the person you are voting for, you know it's not the best for us in the Senate or in the House of Rep. You know that it's not the one that can deliver what you want. It's not the one that can represent you appropriately. But you vote for him because he's giving you money.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Ibrahim. We will be taking a short break, after which we will be looking at the concluding part of this conversation, most especially as it affects the successor or predecessor in Rivers State as regards emergency role and the godfatherism factor, how it's helping our democracy in Nigeria. Do stay. It's mind-blowing if you look at what democracy really stands for and how politicians are really embarking on, implementing measures that will connote democracy, the real sense of democracy. I enjoyed the conversation even while Ibrahim Momo engaged when he said majority rule basically is being questioned, but because we look at the definition of democracy, the people is centered on that definition. But today we don't seem to have that. And questions being asked, what is the reason for which politicians embark on governance? Is it for personal aggrandizement? Because we look at the godfatherism factor that brought us here, the big man in the FCT, and of course, the suspended governor. We look at the challenges of a tussle that basically is not unconnected to money. And a huge chunk of money taken away from the treasury of the state coffers, what is supposed to be for a common patrimony of the people, what is supposed to be used for projects, and you say, like some have said, that, well, it's an agreement, so the governor was supposed to at least stick to the agreement. But to what extent can a successor stick to an agreement with a predecessor, that you can see as tenable, that makes sense in governance?
Thank you very much. I think the problem stems from the fact that political parties that we have in Nigeria do not have ideology. This ideology is not there. One man can bankroll the party and decide to hold the jugular of the party to say, I call the shots. And that is what is happening in visibly all the political parties we have today in Nigeria. It's not a bad thing to support somebody to become governor. But what becomes bad is that you want to gag him all the step of the way. You want to tell him what to do, the numbers of commissioners, how he spends money, and all of that. Before now, you saw the former governor of Rivers State, the minister of FCT, coming out on national television to tell us that immediately he leaves office, he was not going to interfere, with the activities of the next governor. But what are we saying today? You understand? It is all about their pockets and not about the people. That is the problem we are having with the godfathers and godsons in politics.
Okay, there seem not to be reforms, in terms of the laws that seem to govern it, most especially as regards the need for, predecessors to stay off business or interfering negatively, to the government that has been run by the successor. What do you see as going forward, reforms that can also guide us legally, in the books, in the ground norm, that can help governance?
Fine and good. I think, first and foremost, each governor that is coming have their manifesto, and they should be allowed to run with their manifesto. To be allowed, like I said before, parties do not have ideology. We do not know to say, okay, this is PDP, this is what they stand for. This is APC, this is what they stand for. This is Labour Party, this is what they stand for. I think by the time we have party manifestos that the governors will run with, if the focus is on education, on infrastructural development, we know that, yes, the governor is going to be running with that.
Okay, now let's get back to Mr. Ibrahim Momo, if he's still on the line. There are those who actually believe that the intervention Mr. President has been one-sided so far as they can imagine and perceive, because the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, was not even mentioned at all during his broadcast on that day, and it has actually sparked a lot of questions. Now, the question really is, with this state of emergency and the suspension of the governor, do you think it's going to be a lasting solution to the Rivers State political saga we have seen over a time? And are you also foreseeing an extension of the suspension, because Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution actually states that the president also have the right to extend the suspension if need, actually occurs for that. What's your assessment regarding it?
Thank you very much. The first point to say on this issue is that Martin Luther King Jr., the late human rights activist, once said that we must learn to live together as brothers. Why I think the Wike was not mentioned in the broadcast was because Wike, as it is today, is not a legal entity or legal. He has no privileges with regards to Rivers State, except that Wike was controlling the House of Assembly, or majority of the House of Assembly members were loyal to Nyesom Wike. He would not have been a factor at all. And if people allege that the president did not, it was one-sided, I think they should really look at the fact that the House of Assembly members, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Martins Amayewole, was set to impeach the governor and the deputy, and the Constitution grants him, when there is no governor, when the governor and deputy governor are impeached, the Speaker, because he was set to become governor. He was set to become governor. So it's not exactly correct to posit that Wike was not impacted. But yes, the most powerful institution, or if you may, office within a state is the governor's seat. And then the main rival to, as it were, Wike was Governor Siminalayi Fubara. So it may be right to say that Siminalayi Fubara was more affected, but that Wike and his loyalists were not. It's not exactly correct. So if the president had delayed for like a week or two, I am sure by now there would have been a different ball game altogether. One, the House of Assembly would have impeached the speaker, the governor and his deputy. Two, maybe militants or other armed bandits would have been, blowing up other facilities. So the president's action was timely because, yes, there are security issues around the country, but rivers, including Imo, Lagos, Abia, the oil producing Niger Delta is the mainstay of Nigeria's economy. Imagine if it is affected or impacted by militant activity. Do you think that Nigeria, as it were, will still be where it is? By no chance. If the rivers, so the first thing is that everybody was affected. Secondly is that we now say that as a way forward, where I see the extension, I think that my first quote in response to your question comes to mind. We must learn to live together as brothers, or we perish together as fools. The both parties must realize that in a race for the bottom, everybody loses, nobody wins. If the issue is about River State, if the issue is about the welfare and development of the good people of River State, then they must come back to their senses. That is where I stand on the issue.
Ibrahim, big thanks for taking our time to be part of this, and I wish you a beautiful day ahead of you. Ibrahim is a political economist and a lecturer at Brussels University, Ekoma. And big thanks to you, Omoige Amieye. I'm going to learn that someday.
Thank you very much.
The former SSA to the Edo State Governor on Arts and Culture.